The president of the powerful agricultural association, Germán Ruiz, which backs the new government, disagrees, saying the removal of Mr. Lugo from office was a normal democratic political act.
In Europe, where the majority of the governments are parliamentary, when you lose your majority, the government falls. Our country is more presidential, but the only strong party support that the government of Fernando Lugo had was from the Liberal Party. And in his 3 years and 8 months of government, he denigrated the party bit by bit, taking away its most important posts.
Perhaps the most poignant symbol of the Lugo government was Paraguay's new public television station, TV Pública, which sought to give a voice to the country's more marginalized groups. The new administration took control just hours after Mr. Lugo was removed from office and promptly advised the station's executive director, Marcelo Martinezzi, of a new mandate.
I didn't want to stop showing people in the squares. They said you have to not show, you don't have to show people in the square anymore. We don't want to see any protests in public television. Show documentaries, show soap opera, whatever you want, but don't show the resistance, which was strongly against what we were building with citizens. So I told them I wasn't going to do that, and I asked them if they could tell me who I had to resign to, and then they just sent me this resolution saying you're out.
Indigenous and rural communities and women have traditionally been among the most marginalized in Paraguayan society, and felt with the election of Fernando Lugo that for the first time they had a voice. Poor families were given money to send their children to school, and efforts made to tackle unequal land distribution, which remains the country's most pressing issue. Poverty is still prevalent, this shanty town backing onto the Parliament building a poignant reality. Alicia Amarilla says she's despondent but will keep fighting.
Los hijos de los dictadores sigue estando perpetuando en el poder. Y la misma cosa diputado, ¿verdad?
It's the children of the dictatorship who continue perpetually in power. The same is true of the Congress, with the same people continuing to be in control, still thinking like dictators. We're back where we were with all that. The institutions are being cut back, still in the hands of dictators, the way it's always been.
Paraguay was governed for 35 years by Alfredo Stroessner, a brutal dictator who had his opponents tortured and killed, as many as 4,000 during his time in office. After being ousted by the military in 1989, his ultra-conservative Colorado Party continued in office for another 19 years. Paraguay has had a troubled history, vast swathes of its population wiped out in devastating wars, followed by dictatorships. Many here were hoping that with the election of the campaigning former Bishop Fernando Lugo, they were seeing a bright new dawn. Paraguay's Itaipu Dam, one of the world's largest, provides cheap energy for big business and for Paraguay's neighbours, while not far from the capital, there are homes without power. Paraguay is the world's fourth largest exporter of soya, a country where the multinational companies that develop genetically modified crops can do business. But the people, says the former president, were not seeing the benefits.
En primer lugar, creo que está la patria sojera. Nosotros quisimos.
In the first place, let's talk about the soya producers. We were talking in Congress about imposing a tax on the export of soya. Paraguay is the world's fourth biggest soya exporter, and yet they pay nothing to export it. They poison the soil, they weaken the soil, they produce here, and yet they pay nothing for their exports.
Here in the heart of downtown Asunción, this kind of graffiti is testimony to the strength of feeling, the anger still felt by many in the Paraguayan population, who can't quite believe that they were given a voice and then had that voice snatched from them. While there is anger at the sudden change in government, it's mostly being channeled through democratic activities. The opposition is focusing on next April's elections, while some say they're still cautious about protesting openly after decades of dictatorship. It's unclear, according to the Constitution, whether Mr. Lugo can stand in the elections. If not, Mario Ferrero hopes to continue his work.
We think that Paraguayan people is more mature now. They know how to vote, they know what they want, they don't like coups, they want to change the country. So we are, in one part, working with the international multi-sectorial institutions, but also with the people here. And we think that they are going to respect the results of an election in next year. It will be a scandal if they don't accept the results, or if they want to change something in the process.
Let me say, although I'm not a politician, that the left won't even win 2% of the vote, because the voters know them now. The vast majority of Paraguayans are peaceful people. They don't want big changes. They don't want to change our political system. Paraguayans are very possessive. They want their own house, their own things, their own land.
Paraguay remains, as the Paraguayans themselves often say, something of an island surrounded by land, suspended from regional bodies, and the new government recognized by just a few. Like the sweet-sounding strings of the harp, Paraguay's national instrument, the country's current state of apparent tranquility may simply be a prelude to a more rousing crescendo to come.